Good morning. Today is the 7th day of Shvat, the 17th of January. We're up to the fourth reading of Parashat Bo. And in a certain sense, this is the beginning of the Torah. We're actually starting the Torah. How is that even possible? Because in today's reading, chapter 12, verse 1, starts with the first commandment given through Moses. Before that, we had a commandment that was given to Adam and Eve. We had a commandment that was given to Abraham. But this is the first commandment that's given through Moses, and the Torah is the Torah of Moses. It's not the Torah of the patriarchs. In fact, there's a whole question. What is even the book of Genesis doing in the Torah? The sages say God should have started the Torah, or Moses should have started the Torah from this verse, chapter 12, verse 1, because this is the first verse that actually gives a commandment. And the Torah of Moses is about commandments. It's not about stories, even though it also has stories. But as the Zohar says, if you understand them only as stories, then you're missing the point. There's something much deeper in each one of them. It is a lesson and not just a story. But all that's clear. This idea that the Torah really starts here is given a lot of credence by the fact that all the halachic discussions of the sages that were compiled in works called Midrashei Halacha, the homiletic, halachic, legal interpretations of Torah, actually start from this verse. We don't find any of these midrashim, these discussions of law, on everything before this, because there was no point for it. There's not, even, as we've mentioned a number of times, even the commandments that were given to Adam and to Abraham are not kept today because they were given to Abraham and to Adam, but because they were repeated, again, reiterated by Moses. And what is the big difference between the two? The difference is that the patriarchs, all the generations until Moses, understood God in his capacity as the creator, but not in a capacity as a giver of the Torah. What is the difference between the two? The patriarchs set out to connect to nature, to God as a creator of nature. And therefore all their work was to find out how to best lead their lives in a way that they could connect with the creator of the universe. So, actually, they were searching for God. And searching for God, they were quite successful. They discovered the path that many had thought was gone and was no longer in existence. Maybe it had been lost already in the time of Adam, maybe in the time of Seth. But certainly by the third generation of mankind, the Torah says that there was already idolatry. And idolatry, as we've said, doesn't mean worshiping an idol. It means worshiping a messenger. Or in other words, worshiping the forces and not the source behind the forces. But Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob went to the source. They were looking for a connection to the source. They were looking for a way to bypass, or at least see the source within the messengers, or bypass the messengers altogether and go directly to the source. Because of that, the sages were working, as we say, from below to above. From below to above means that it's an awakening for man who is searching for God. And because they were successful in their search, and they dedicated their entire lives to this search, as it says in the Talmud, they became a chariot for the divine will. They searched and found God in such a devoted way that there was not a single act that they did that was not meant to give voice, to give a representation for the divine within the world. So that's called from below to above, because the awakening came from them. When we find that God says to Abraham, Lech lecha, go, meaning he sends him off to the land that he will show him, that awakening from above is already a result of Abraham's long-told awakening from below. And it was a reward that he received for having searched for God for so long. But when Moses introduces us to God, it's a completely different God. It's not, well, it's the same God, but a completely different aspect of God. And here, it's the aspect of God being above nature. That's why everything we've seen up till now in Moses' life is acts of miracles that surpass nature. Moses is now showing us that really nature is all good and well, and God created nature. But there is an aspect of God that is above nature, that can circumvent nature, that can change nature, that can manipulate nature. And that's what he's showing the Egyptians. In the morning classes, we have a series called Exile is Not a Punishment. And there, one of the points we noticed was that when Moses first came to Pharaoh, Pharaoh says, who is God? Who is this person you name Havaya, this power you name Havaya? I've never heard of this power. And what Moses is saying to him is, above nature there is something that is creating nature, that is bringing nature into being. But Pharaoh doesn't believe in that anymore. He only believes in the forces that he sees. He only believes in the plurality. Instead of taking that as a sign that the world has only deteriorated, God says to Moses, take this as a sign that now what's needed is a new revelation, a whole new revelation of who I am, because the old revelation is gone in a certain sense. It doesn't make people act better. It doesn't turn them into better people. They need something higher now. And that something higher is going to become God as lawgiver, as God who is demanding from man to do more than what nature would dictate, to go beyond what his nature is. Everything from now on, from here on out, is going to be a commandment not to live only by our nature, but rather to go beyond it. And because of that, at the very end of our reading, we find that not only are we given the commandment to create a calendar, we're also given the commandment to make the Paschal Lamb, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the issue in the Paschal Lamb is that God says, I will leap over the houses of the Egyptians, the houses of the Israelites, and I will only strike the houses of the Egyptians. That is the plague of the firstborn. That leaping over, that whole idea that God is somehow coming down, is the reverse direction from what the patriarchs were, which we said was an awakening from below, leading them higher. And here it's the opposite. God is coming down. He's awakening from above, but he's not awakening just descending in a organized, degree by degree, stage by stage, step by step descent. He's leaping. And that's why this holiday that we commemorate every year is called Pesach, which literally means to leap over. Because when God is now coming down, it's the infinite entering the finite. Everything that the sages did was still the finite, trying to reach the finite aspect of God. But now the infinite aspect is going to be revealed. This is the essence of what the commandments are. I don't think I've talked about this before, but now is a good time to say it, because there's actually a Rashi that literally says what I'm about to say. Rashi asks a question. They haven't come out of Egypt yet, and they haven't received the Torah yet. Why do they need commandments? Supposedly, really the Torah should have started from chapter 19. Chapter 19 is a description, or 18 even, is a description of coming to Mount Sinai and preparing for the giving of the Torah, and then the giving of the Torah itself. Chapter 20 is the 10 Commandments. Why doesn't it start from there? It should really have started from there. So Rashi asks this question, Why do they need to receive commandments even before the official descent of God to give the Torah has started? And Rashi says an amazing thing. He says that God wanted them to have merits. In other words, he says, let me try to translate it quickly. I don't have an English translation in front of me, but I'll try to translate this quickly. He says, Matya ben Charash says, I passed over you. It's a verse from Ezekiel 16. I passed over you and I saw you, and now was a time of love. So he says, God, I passed over you and I saw you, he's referring to the Israelites, to the Jewish people, and I saw that it was time of love. Meaning, he says, it's time to fulfill the oath, the vow that I gave to Abraham that I would redeem his sons. And yet, they had no commandments to act upon. Why do they need commandments to act upon? In order to be redeemed. So we have this incredible principle that Matya ben Charash, he's a Tanaic sage. He tells us that you have to have commandments in order to be redeemed. And he gives us a proof. And he says, Shene'emar, as it says, Ve'at erom ve'eria. You are naked and without clothing, or revealed. Naked and your private parts are revealed. What is this? What is he saying? He's saying that the commandments are a garment that we wear. There are definitely commandments that we wear on our body. For instance, tefillin that we put on our body, the tzitzis that we put on our body. There's different the breastplate, maybe all the special clothing of the priest for certain is a commandment in and of itself, and so on. But it's not just the commandments that we wear that are garments. Every single commandment is considered a garment. Why? Because we say these are the garments of God. The commandments are like the garments of God. We dress in His garments. Why His garments? Because, as we said, God Himself is beyond human comprehension. So the only way that we can say we belong to this, we have a connection, is by wearing the garments that He prescribed that we wear. The garments are external. They're still external. They're not like a connection to God Himself. But when you're talking about the infinite, that's as best as you can do. You can't get, at least through action, to a higher place. You have to allow for the fact that there's always going to be an infinite gap between God and man. But what bridges the gap is the commandments, which are then worn like a garment. And it's an amazing statement that he says here. They needed to have garments in order to be redeemed, in order to be taken out of Egypt. One would say the garments were like the identification. When they came to the Red Sea, there was no difference because they were still Egyptians. They were living in Egyptian culture for 210 years. They had taken it on in many respects. They were even, according to the Talmud, idolaters. They didn't know yet the difference. But the moment that they had these two commandments, and the two commandments are the Paschal Lamb and setting up the calendar, and later on we'll also see that they, actually before they left, they also circumcised. So this was certainly something that they wore on their body themselves. It was like an identification to be able to separate between the Israelites and between the Egyptians. This principle, I believe, and I think that this is the principle by which the Lubavitcher Rebbe acted, is that before every redemption, everyone has to have garments, everyone has to have commandments. And we always ask the question, why is this redemption, why is this exile so long? Why is the redemption tarrying? Why is the Mashiach not coming yet? And I believe that the answer is exactly in this Rashi. That in order to be redeemed, there cannot be a single person, there cannot be a single Israelite that doesn't wear the garments of the commandments. And that's really the whole function, in a certain sense, of Chabad, is to get to every single Jew and to convince them to perform something. Convince them to do something. The moment that you do something because it's a commandment, because you're serving Hashem, that creates a bond between you and the infinite. And the moment that all the people have garments, nobody is naked, nobody is left with their private parts showing, as it were, nobody is embarrassed by their state, then the redemption becomes possible. And that's the last thing that we're waiting for, so that every single Jew who's alive now should have at least a single garment, at least one that he can wear, and then the redemption can come. So thank you for joining. Hope to see you tomorrow. All the best.